AFTS is ready for launch.
Falcon 9's in startup.
Ground gas closeout is complete.
Stage 2 pressing for flight.
LD go for launch.
Stage 1 is at startup pressures.
T-minus 15 seconds.
Falcon 9 is configured for flight.
10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Ignition. Liftoff.
Vehicle has passed maximum aerodynamic pressure.
You can tell by the cheers and what you heard on that call out, we have gotten through max Q. Coming up next, you're going to hear the call for MVAC
MVAC engine chill has begun.
And that was it. That is where we chill in that Merlin vacuum engine down to operating temperature. Now coming up here shortly, you're going to hear 3 big events happening in rapid succession. The first is MECO, that stands for main engine cutoff. That is where all 9 of the first stage engines are going to shut down. That's in preparation for the next step, which is stage sep, or stage separation. That is where stage 1 will separate from stage 2. Stage 1 will make its way back down to the drone ship. Stage 2 will continue on with TESS to its orbit. And then you're going to hear second engine start. That is the ignition of the second stage engine. Let's check it out here.
MECO.
Stage separation confirmed.
Stage 1 is out of its foot. MVAC ignition.
All right, and as you just saw, we had a successful stage separation and a successful ignition of that second stage engine. Now the fairing should be deploying at any moment. There we go. And you can see that tiny but strong TESS spacecraft inside of that, or on top of stage 2. Now stage 1 is making its way back down to Earth. What we're going to see coming up pretty shortly is a boost back burn.
Grid fin deployed.
Grid fins have deployed.
Both stages following nominal trajectories.
Acquisition of signal, Bermuda.
Right now, stage 2 is going to continue to burn until T+8 minutes and 20 seconds, while stage 1 makes its way back down to Earth. Now, there are 2 more burns coming up for stage 1. The next one's going to be the entry burn. That's where we're going to reignite 3 of the stage 1 engines. And that burn is intended to slow down stage 1's descent as it makes its way through that thick upper atmosphere. We'll be seeing that at 6 minutes and 29 seconds or so in about 2 minutes. We're hearing that stage 2's burn is still performing nominally. continue to burn for about another 3 minutes and 1 minute until we see that reentry burn. Now, after that reentry burn, stage 1 is going to continue on making its way down to the drone ship, and coming up thereafter will be the landing burn. That'll be the third of the 3 burns, and at that point we're going to reignite that center engine, E9, and that'll bring us down to 0 velocity, hopefully standing up tall on the drone ship. Continuing to hear that impact D is looking good. Turbopump performance is good. Everything is performing nominally on stage 2, which is great news.
Stage 1 is transonic.
As you heard, stage 1 is transonic. We're about 10 seconds away from that landing burn. Note that the drone ship is situated approximately 300 kilometers off the coast of Florida, and as you can see, that landing burn has started. Let's see if we can catch it. Landing of a Falcon 9 first stage. And meanwhile, we've reached SECO, which is second engine cutoff. Stage 2 has shut down its first burn. Now, stage 2 should be in a parking orbit of about 250 by 250 kilometers. Stage 2 is now going to coast for 35 minutes or so. So why don't you come back here at T plus 39 minutes, where we're going to bring you back to the webcast, where we're going to resume it, and we will be relighting the second stage engine for a second time in order to raise the apogee of our orbit to 273,000 kilometers. That gets us into TESS's highly elliptical orbit, where we will then deploy the spacecraft. So we're going to continue showing you some live views of space and of TESS and of stage 2. And we'll be back to commentate the webcast at T plus 42 minutes. Welcome back, everybody. We are coming upon the end of our 35-minute coast, and the second engine is about to reignite. Just heard on the nets that MVAC chillin has begun, and pretty soon the second stage will be reigniting to take TESS to its deployment orbit. In about 30 seconds, we're going to see that engine reignite. From there, the burn is going to last for about 1 minute before the engine shuts down again. And as you just saw there, we have reignited the second stage. And this burn's going to last for about a minute. This is raising the apogee of our orbit so that we can drop TESS off at a place where it can then properly begin to perform its own orbit raising maneuvers to get it to that point where it can perform its lunar flyby. We are beginning to throttle everything down, hearing that everything is looking totally normal on this burn, which is really good news. And the engine has shut down.
Have that cut off.
So for about 5 minutes, the stage is going to coast with TESS on top, at which point the payload is going to deploy. Now, the way that works is there is what is referred to as a payload adapter that is sitting on the top of our second stage, and TESS is attached to that. It's attached via a clamp band, which is basically like a banded spring. We'll send a separation signal to Falcon 9, which will then open up that clamp band, and there will be 4 springs inside of that payload adapter, 4 compression springs that will give TESS a little gentle push to push it away from stage 2. And after a while, a few minutes after that, TESS is going to turn on its transmitters, on its receivers, deploy its solar arrays, and begin its mission. So let's watch these live views for the next 4 minutes or so, and we'll come back for a live view of payload deploy. Welcome back, everybody. We are now gearing up for spacecraft deploy. That'll happen in about a minute. This is where we're going to separate the TESS spacecraft from Falcon 9, and TESS is going to go on about its own journey, where it's going to be using its own onboard propulsion systems to raise its altitude and get it into its mission orbit. In just under a minute here, we'll be seeing the spacecraft separate from Falcon 9. Look at that beautiful image of the Earth behind us there. It's one of the planets TESS is going to look at in its lifetime. And as you can see there, we have had successful separation of the TESS spacecraft. And it's going on its beautiful mission to look at thousands of planets outside of our solar system. And with that brings us to an end of our webcast, as Falcon 9's job is done for today. So this was a pretty successful mission, right? We had a successful stage 1 ascent and landing. Stage 2 has properly deployed the TESS spacecraft into its intended orbit, and TESS is now on its way, and hopefully we'll hear soon about the health of the payload. I want to give a big thank you to the NASA Launch Services Program for their faith in us, to Goddard Space Flight Center, to MIT, and to the 45th Space Wing for their range support for today's mission. You can follow SpaceX on social media via our Twitter feed as well as our Instagram. You can also check us out on spacex.com. And if you want to learn more about the TESS mission, visit nasa.gov. Thank you all so much for joining today, and we'll catch you at the next launch.